J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance.
So, who is J.D. Vance? Apart from the Donald Trump assassination attempt, the man is all over the news in American media. But why should we Indians be talking about him? Is it simply because of our interest in US politics? Or is it because he's our brave friend Donald Trump's running mate? Or is it simply because he has a Hindu wife? Or is there much more to his story than just this? I bet there is. After all, the man has been saying some meaningful things.
What is the first truly Islamist country that will get a nuclear weapon? And we were like, maybe it's Iran, maybe Pakistan already kind of counts. And then we sort of finally decided maybe it's actually the UK, since Labour just took over.
I was so interested in him that I read his bestseller book, Hillbilly Elegy, watched a movie about him, and have watched him a lot on the internet now. And I have all the reasons to tell you why you should too. J.D. Vance was born on 2nd August 1984 in Middletown, Ohio, as James Donald Bauman to Beverly Carroll and Donald Ray Bauman. But wait a minute, where is the Vance surname? Well, you will yourself know as the story proceeds. Though born in Rust Belt in Middletown, Ohio, Vance's family were from Jackson, Kentucky. They were of Scots-Irish descent, belonging to the white working class, and were famously, or let's say infamously, known as the hillbillies, the rednecks, and even white trash. Yes, white trash, you heard it right. They were initially slaves in Southern America's plantation economy. Then they became laborers, miners. They ultimately became mill workers. The majority of them were limited to blue-collar jobs, and these folks never knew anything about office jobs, okay? But there were certain hillbilly things which J.D. Vance cherished as a kid. Like his family men going to any length to save their women's honor, respecting their dead ones, never letting one's weakness be known to the outsiders, and being tough and fighting. But there were certain hillbilly vices which he detested strongly, like the drug menace and alcoholism, irresponsible parents, unstable marriages, adultery, and whatnot. This bred the constant urge in him to either fight or run away. There was no major work in Jackson, Kentucky. For those who lived there in the post-World War II era, the sole option was to either migrate to the Rust Belt and work in the mines, or just spend their lives on the edge of poverty, if not already submerged in it. Unstable families were a norm among the hillbillies, and the Vance family was no different. J.D. Vance's maternal grandmother, Bonnie Blanton, got pregnant at 13 with his boyfriend James Lee Vance, who was just 16 then. Now there was no option left. Sometime around 1947, they married and moved to Middletown, Ohio. He got a job at Armco Steel Factory and then settled there. But they moved to Jackson so often that it was like having one foot in the old life and one foot in the new. The Vance family, like a million others from the Appalachia Mountains, traversed the metaphorical hillbilly highway. Life wasn't easy there. Their first child died in 6 months. Several miscarriages followed, but they somehow managed to raise a family. But everything apart, they loved their country, America, the most. And they seriously believed in the American dream. So they kept toiling hard. But Middletown was no different. The industry there had a family-based hiring policy which encouraged the creation of several Jacksons and Middletowns in the Ohio's Rust Belt. Their marriage soon ruptured for the same old hillbilly reasons: alcoholism, physical abuse, rowdy behavior, and disloyalty. J.D. Vance's mother, Beverly, Aunt Lori, and Uncle Jim all suffered. They often found themselves involved in their parents' violent fightings, putting themselves in harm's way just to stop them somehow. Once J.D. Vance's memo, यानी कि उनकी नानी, she burned her drunk husband after a fight. The young daughter, hiding nearby, put off the fire with a blanket. They decided to live separately after this. JD's mother had the worst of it. She was a bright student until high school but went haywire soon. She got married and pregnant at 18 with JD's elder sister and soon got divorced at 19. Things did not stop there. She started changing partners so often and soon became a drug addict. But she somehow got herself a nursing job. It was in these circumstances that JD Vance was born in August 1984. Until he grew old enough to make sense of what was happening around him, JD Vance loved and enjoyed his early years. He would love going to Jackson for vacations, running after turtles, hearing the Blanton men's legendary stories, and picking fights for his mother's honor. For he was taught so. And he hated returning to Middletown every bit. By the time he was 10 or 12, he was able to figure out that all was not right with his family. He had no stable home. His mother would keep changing bases as per her love and drug interests. One of JD's friends would even call those men as his mother's flavor of the month. His parents divorced when he was a toddler. Shortly afterwards, James Bauman was adopted by his mother's third husband, Bob Hamill. He soon changed his name to James David Hamill. This explains the constantly missing Vance from his name. Young JD had a revolving door of potential father figures. By the time he started liking one, his mother would opt to another, and then within days or weeks, get married to another. JD hated it, as anyone would. But there was a catch here. His papa was the only stable paternal figure around him. He learnt maths and shooting from him. Despite all the junky behavior, even his mother imbibed a love for books and education in young JD. But here, drug addiction always took over. Once, she tried to crash their car with his son in it. And when JD tried to escape, she beat him so badly that the boy had to run for his life. He then had to lie before the authorities to bail her drug addict mother out of jail. At one time, he was forced into giving his clean urine to help his mother get back her revoked nursing license. She would always say sorry and then get back at it again. There seemed no coming back. Amid all this, his elder sister Lindsay ensured that he was cared for and got food somehow. Her mother kept him on the move constantly, one paternal family to another. Consequently, he picked up drinking and smoking weed. Even got into bad company for a while. He missed school so often and barely passed his class with a 2.1 GPA. Things changed for him only when he started living permanently with his mama. She picked JD from one of her daughter's husband's homes and threatened her to talk to the barrel of her gun if she tried taking him away without JD's will.
I'm taking him
Where?
to live with me. And if you got a problem with that, you can talk to the barrel of my gun.
JD agreed. And finally, as there was some stability in his life, he started improving with his studies. In the book he has written, he says he would not have ever made it if not for the presence of his grandparents in his life. Now, this very bit about JD Vance's life is a lesson number one for us Indians. Indian society is also witnessing a rapid increase in divorces and failed marriages these days. Even Indian Twitter is abuzz with these discussions. There are several renowned studies which show how children of parents with a stable marriage and family are likely to do much better than the ones in unstable or multiple families. Such children are more likely to fail in life. There is no such widespread research on Indian society, but the focus of modern working couples living away from parents in joint families is visibly taking a heavy toll on our families and children as well. We aren't in a situation as bad as the American working class. But how long will it take if we don't mend our ways immediately? Let's get back to JD Vance's story. As JD was soon to become the first in his nuclear family to attend college at Ohio State, he was trying to escape the hillbilly realities. Unstable families, drug addiction, and the poverty of aspiration. His grandparents and even his mother stressed that getting a good education was the only way out, realizing the American dream required upward socio-economic mobility, and that is exactly what JD Vance was trying to achieve. But nothing came easy for JD. His mother's addiction and adultery kept on getting worse. His memo was getting old and weak with every passing moment, and he was constantly terrified of losing her. His sister was busy with her marriage and family now. JD was steering through difficult and weird questions about his evangelical faith. Like his memo, he was finding ways to believe in the people they loved, like hoping that his mother would change, but she just did not. A 17-year-old JD Vance took a job at a grocery store. Working here, he observed different types of people indulging in different kinds of spending behavior. He noted that a large minority of working class white Americans were content to live off government doles. His memo vehemently criticized the government for spending middle class taxes on providing welfare to people who were doing literally nothing at all. He saw it as hillbillies destroying whatever little values they have in their lives. JD Vance says that this is how the South and the Appalachians, mainly working class people, went from being staunch Democrats to Republicans within one generation. Here is lesson number 2 for us Indians. Blind welfareism, popularly known as khatakhat these days, can lead to disastrous realities which we are trying to avoid in the first place. It is a lesson one must learn irrespective of the party or ideology they belong to. Let's move back to Vance's story again. Somehow, JD realized that he was not ready to join college as yet. He earned more money by working as a tile factory worker, as a forklift operator, and even as a sweeper there. He then opted to join the US Marine Corps. This was a life-altering moment. The Marines changed him completely, both physically and mentally. He learnt valuable lessons in strategic thinking and leadership, and basically how to approach his life thereafter. His thinking changed drastically. He served for 6 months in Iraq in 2005. The misery he saw there made him feel grateful for all he had got. While he lost his memo, the learning and the earnings that he got from the US Marines made him a tough and altogether different person. After a brief but illustrious service, JD left the Marines as he felt ready for college now. He graduated from the Ohio State University in 2009. It was with the support of the GI Bill's tuition benefits that he did his education. During this time here, he worked at the Ohio State House for Senator Bob Schuller to finance his stay in the city. He even worked 3 jobs at once, which took a heavy toll on his health as well, but the guy kept going. This was his first brush with real politics and the real world, something which would become his ultimate career path later. And here comes lesson number 3 for us. The life-altering changes in JD Vance's life after a brief service hints towards the answers to our doubts regarding the Agnipath scheme. The benefit JD Vance got for his service at the US Marine Corps provided him with a chance at the career he wanted. Why can't the Indian Army do the same for the Agniveers? Think about it. So, JD wanted to attend law school so that he could land a job and make decent money. But in the first round of admissions, he did not even apply to Stanford, Harvard, and Yale, thinking that a hillbilly like him from Ohio State University won't even make the cut at all. The self-rejections that many of us often commit. But he eventually did apply in 2011 and graduated as the class of 2013 at Yale Law School. But again, his rapid upward mobility inspired inner conflicts. His hillbilly core made him doubt whether he belonged at Yale School or not, a place which has given so many Supreme Court judges and even presidents. Despite the diversity at Yale, everybody at Yale was insanely rich. Our man was still poor. He writes in his book, "I left like my spaceship has crashed in OZ." He was facing turmoils. There were opportunities, but he did not know what to do with them. He felt himself to be a misfit in their elite parties. But then came his Yale spirit guide, an Indian Hindu girl named Usha Chilukuri, whom he described in his book as the super smart daughter of Indian immigrants. She to him was his genetic anomaly. Someone who was bright, hardworking, tall, beautiful, and had a great sense of humor and even a uniquely direct way of speaking. The man was in deep love. She encouraged him towards opportunities that he did not know existed for him. She was helping him pass his social tests in corporate boardrooms via phone calls, teaching him how to use different types of forks and spoons. She was helping him with his studies, with opportunities, and through, uniquely odd emergencies, like his mother switching to yet another addiction. And this time it was heroin. Usha was always there. From working in a floor tile factory to turning down some job interviews which could have given him a 6-figure salary, JD has now seen it all. But all can't just go well in a hillbilly's life. Whenever there were disagreements between him and Usha, he would either shout or just withdraw to his shell. He writes about it in his book that, Usha described him with the analogy of a turtle. He tried to push Usha away with his behavior and ran away from her. But she always stayed, followed him, and even asked him to fight his demons. The lady was a different build altogether. Her families and her Hindu values were different from the hillbilly legacy of bad marriages. She knew the importance of family and held on to him. JD writes in his book, "Even at my best, I am a delayed explosion. I can be diffused, but only with skill and precision," which he said only Usha managed to do well. They married in 2014. It was then that JD Hamill officially took the surname of his maternal grandfather Vance. Since then, he has donned many hats. Worked for Republican Senator John Cornyn as a law clerk, entered private practice, and then went on to become a venture capitalist. In 2016, Harper published Vance's book, Hillbilly Elegy, a memoir of a family and culture in crisis. The book became an instant hit, as it struck a chord with millions beyond his native geography as well. In November 2020, the book Hillbilly Elegy was made into a movie. Vance soon entered active politics, became a senator, and is now Donald Trump's running mate. A hell of a stride in such little time and extremely adverse circumstances. I don't want to speak much about the usual Democrat versus Republican tussle. Some call JD the voice of the Rust Belt, while others call him the false prophet of Blue America. Some call his social service in Ohio a facade, while others hail him for the simply extraordinary life he has led. He has moved from being a big-time Trump critic to, as Biden says, a clone of Donald Trump. There are many versions, and to each his own. But the racist slurs being hurled at his Hindu wife Usha Chilukuri Vance are outrightly problematic. The extremely qualified lady is being called all sort of names for being a Hindu. And JD Vance is also being berated for his wife's faith. Usha Vance's family has its roots in Andhra Pradesh. One of Usha's granduncles, the late Chilukuri Subramanya Sastry, was arrested during Indira Gandhi's emergency era for being a RSS worker. His wife and Usha's grandaunt, Chilukuri Santhamma, is a 94-year-old physics professor at Centurion University. She has written a book on Srimad Bhagavad Gita and has deep interests in Vedas, Puranas and Upanishads. But such a Hindu heritage of her family is too much for the Western media to handle. Politics aside, the life of JD Vance is truly inspirational for anyone who has been dealt a rough set of cards by the gods of fate and yet feels a burning desire in his heart to succeed. He comes from an extremely complicated background and everything in his past suggests that he should have been a pathetic failure in life himself. His community had deep-rooted cultural issues and his family was not any better. His grandfather had his issues and his mother was an addict, but he still made it. There indeed exist many policy and governance related issues in India. But a lot of the time, the fault lies not in our stars, but in ourselves too. The story of Vance's life teaches us one fundamental truth. No matter how fucked up our life is, no matter how fucked up our choices are, no matter how fucked up the cards we have been dealt with are, there is always light at the end of the tunnel. Provided we have the strength and integrity of character to walk towards it. Despite all sort of demons around us, which are trying to drag us down, we need to move towards the light.